Today we went over the refines for update 9.0 in Fire Emblem Heroes. This month you can get new skills for Solon, Merlinus, Catherine, Duessel, and Halloween Female Grima. Unfortunately, I heard there was some issues with the data mine this update, so I don't have clean images of the refined skill icons. I will just be leaving those blank for this video. Sorry about that. First up, Solon is another one of our gimmicky red Grand Hero battle mages, and with high attack and res, Solon is actually kind of interesting because he's decently min-maxed for lower speed. Instead of higher defense, he does have pretty decent base HP. Now, his Banshee tome only received one change to its original effect. On turns 3 and 4, inflict -7 to all stats, gravity, guard, and the flash status onto the closest foe within 5 spaces. If foe initiates or has higher than 75% HP, inflict attack and res debuffs equal to 6 plus the number of negative stats is active on the foe. Solon also then gets true damage equal to 20% res. Banshee's stat debuff went from -6 to -7, otherwise it has the same base effect. The definition of gimmicky is still only going to debuff on 2 turns, so if you miss your chance or you don't even make it there, then oh well. Sadly, Banshee still has the 5 space range condition, so Solon does need to get a little close to actually do something. Gravity and flash with full debuffs is pretty nasty though. For the actual refine, every phase inflict -7 attack and res and sabotage on foes with less res than Solon, and that are within 2 spaces of another foe. If Solon is healthy, in combat he will inflict -6 attack and resistance, neutralize the foe's attack and res field boss, and he gets a free follow-up attack. This refine makes sure Solon has some kind of debuffing every turn. He has a stronger Sabotage B skill requiring a res track, and instead of adjacent foes, it affects foes within 2 spaces. For combat, Solon has a stronger low attack and res when inflicting another 6 debuffs. Combined with the base effect, Solon can inflict -12 attack and resistance at base, and you can improve that with every negative status, plus you stack the -7 on-field debuff. If the foe is sabotaged, then that -7 turns into -14. In total, you can get -26 attack and res, -27 if you count sabotage as a 1 negative status. Now, if Banshee's a base effect was activated as both, you could also hit -30 total, but that only hits 1 enemy. Outside of turns 3 and 4, Solon's just an attack and res debuffing mage for the most part. One thing to keep in mind is that Banshee's turn 3 and 4 effects only work within 5 spaces. You either need to get the enemy moving, or Solon's gotta survive long enough to get close. He doesn't have any flat DR or percent DR to stack with, but you could do the Lagoose Friend setup. Flare for healing would be nice, and ideally this is with Emblem Ike and Time's Pulse. For his attack, res, and sabotage debuffing, Solon does need to win a res check. You can run Stronghold if you want to keep Solon's physical bulk up. It's not that bad with all his attack debuffs and decent base HP. For a more aggressive build, well, patient aggressive build, Solon can also use the new Pulse Up ploy. Pulse Up grants -1 cooldown every turn. The ploy part is the tier 4 ploy and exposure statuses. For a unit that has a turn 3 and 4 gimmick, if you're gonna wait, you might as well get free cooldown. With this, Solon can pre-charge Iceberg Flare, Glaciers, or even an AoE Blazing special. Stacking flat resistance would help with AoE damage. You can also use something like Resonance to try and just go for a one-shot KO. Solon can get the 60% DR Pierce, and then the 12 extra true damage thanks to his high base HP. For other skills, Fire Flip boost for HP and Guard. You could do close bonus double if you want to have fun. The Discord B skill has the same conditions as Solon's Refine. It would add another 15% res true damage too. For some percent DR skills, you can use Guard 4 or Disrupt 4. And if you rather go for more supports, you can use Infantry Pulse or maybe just Conta Control. More lockdown abilities while waiting for Banshee's turn 3 and 4 effects. Since Solon has Sabotage, you can also bring speed and defense debuffs to help out the rest of your team. For tuned skills, you could do Guard Echo, but also just tough to beat free cooldown via Time's Pulse Echo. All in all, Solon can actually do something now outside turns 3 and 4. His gimmick is annoying, but you need to be somewhat close and obviously wait a little bit. His new attack res and sabotage debuffing is alright, though you do want to stack flat resistance to help out. For the most part, honestly, not a bad refine, and there are some new skills Solon can make use of if you get them. Certainly a much better red Grand Hero battle mage than before. Our next refine is a fun one, and that's for Merlinus. He's a bit of a meme unit since, as his weapon states, Merlin is basically the Convoy of his game. As a unit, he's a Dagger Cavalier with 50 HP and 20 attack. That's paired with an OK 35 speed and some OK defenses. The new Convoy Dagger adds another 5 HP, and it gives Merlinus unrestricted warping to any ally. If he does fight within 3 spaces of an ally, Merlinus inflicts -6 attack and speed and prevents 1 follow-up attack. Let's push on with the refine. If Merlinus uses a rally or movement assist, he's going to buff his ally with +6 attack and speed, bonus doubler, and the status neutralizes stat debuffs in combat. These buffs also spread to 2 spaces around the target, although Merlinus will not get buffed himself. If foe initiates or is on high HP, Merlinus inflicts another -6 attack and speed, and he now gets 40% DR for all attacks. So basically, Merlinus gets to 55 HP with no merges, he inflicts -12 attack and speed, he has 40% damage reduction, and stops one fall. Not an insane amount of bulk, but still really funny if you can't double him or get past a damage reduction. To help his team, Merlinus gets Wings of Mercy, but without any HP condition. The guy will appear at any time, and if he uses a rally or movement assist, Merlinus can buff up his ally with some nice bonus double stats, while also protecting the ally from debuffs. If Merlinus uses this near his team, he can buff the entire team. While he needs to use an action to buff up, that's generally fine since Merlinus is not planning to fight anyway. For builds, Merlinus can use the brand new Lookout Force C skill that's coming up on the next banner. This is a Dagger only skill and gives unconditional Kanto 2, which is great since with Far Trace, Merlinus gets no Kanto if he warps in unless you have the Far Trace 4 or Echo. On top of Kanto, Lookout Force lets Merlinus use Distance Swap, which is a 2-space range swap. It's similar to Yuri's Foul Play, just during the Kanto action. One way to use this is to have Merlinus warp ahead of an ally and rally them to trigger his Refine's buffs. With Kanto, you can move further ahead and then swap back to the ally you just buffed or whoever. Now, Merlinus is safe and your ally is ahead. If you want to use Reposition, Merlinus can reposition the first ally after warping, then use Distance Swap on a second ally to move 2 units forward. No matter how you get it, Kanto is a great tool for this full support Refine. Now, as for other support skills, Rally Defense and Res with the Refine will fully buff up one ally, and they have bonus doubler. You can also use Rally Up, since the Refine does give its buffs in an area. Pair Rally with Ruse to deploy long-range debuffing, and Merlinus gets to choose which lane he debuffs since he can warp to anyone. Now, if you want a third stat debuff, you can dust off the faint Sacred Seals. When it comes to movement assists, you can pair these with Link, Snag, or the new Detect B skills. You can mess around with the different assist skills depending on the map or just your preference. If you want some Aether Raid utility, you can run Disarm Trap. You need the tier 4 or Potent Disarm if you want Merlinus to get the HP benefits for the Hex Traps, although his base HP is so high, so honestly you could just get away with using the tier 3. Slap in an HP plus 5 A skill. Sadly, there's not a lot of ways to use high base HP for this class type, no Sudden Panic or Infantry Pulse, but you could run Pulse tie skills. One interesting skill could be Pass, bypass Warp Bubble to draw back or reposition an ally to safety. Generally speaking though, you kind of want to have Merlinus assist before the fighting starts, otherwise you're going to get no refined buffs. For other skills, you can run Winter Water Sweep, maybe set up stuff like Flared Sparrow, Savage Blow, or even Pulse Smog's Pulse Smoke effect. The issue is that unless you got dancers, engaging means you aren't buffing with the Refine. You kind of have to treat Merlinus like a dancer himself. Overall, this is a silly little fun Refine. I don't think it's game breaking, but the infinite range warp is hilarious and honestly might be strong with the new Shadow Shift and new Lookout Force type skills. He's not exactly an insane tank, but Merlinus could maybe block enemies just by being in the way. He can use Obstruct only, but the new Hector offers Bulwark as a status, and Valentine's Murder does give warp up to her support. You could do some interesting stuff with that. Similar to Elfin, who we just got, since Merlinus has such low attack, this could make him a chaotic AI defense unit. He probably won't attack first before he starts buffing up his team. Our next Refine is for Catherine, who is an older 5-star Swordmaster with the usual offensive spread. Thunderbrand got some updates and a new effect. It grants plus 3 speed, and now every turn, if above 25% HP, Catherine gives plus 6 attack and speed and the treachery status to allies within 2 spaces. If the foe is above half health, Catherine gets plus 5 to all stats, full no follow-up effects, and Desperation. Thunderbrand now gives full plus 5 stats with full no follow-up, which is good. The HP condition is the same though, which is a little odd. That's not a common condition nowadays, and it might be an issue since Breath of Life 4 and instant healing now exists. Now Catherine wants to end fights in one round though, so she has Treachery and Self buffs. Treachery grants the true damage equal to the total number of field buffs on the unit. I believe this is the first time Treachery can be passed on without inaction. Units like Rihanna Lucina and Hathor need to use their assist skills, and it's on some dual skills. It's a fairly potent effect, just like Dominance, but Treachery is countered by the Ploy status, and obviously buff neutralization as well. Now, if you can avoid those, it's great with Eikthrnir, who just adds plus 3 to any current field buff, and obviously he also adds bonus doubler. Moving on, for her Refine, if initiating or near an ally, Catherine gets plus 5 to all stats again. She neutralizes attack and speed debuffs and deals true damage equal to 20% speed. She then gets the regular potent follow-up effect. If lowering the speed roll by 25 would allow Catherine to double, she will trigger a potent hit. If she doesn't get a natural follow-up or she doesn't have brave attacks, the potent attack would do 80% damage, if not, it's only 40%. This refine may seem familiar because the first 3 effects are shared by Shamir. If you want to pair up the Christmas colored knights, they do have some complementary effects with the just full offensive damage. Now, instead of going for brave attacks, Thunderbrand gets potent for minus the % DR part. With Desperation in the base effect, Catherine kinda has a similar type of playstyle as Mythicular or Emblem Marth. If she would have doubled naturally, Catherine now does 3 hits in a row. Unfortunately, unlike Euler or Marth, Catherine only gets the regular potent effect and not the 100% full damage potent hit. In addition, Desperation is vulnerable to Hardy Bearing, and Catherine only gets 10 extra defense and res to help tank a counterattack. Basically, Catherine is just going for the 2 or 3 tap instant knockout. She has Treachery and 20% speed as true damage sources to utilize for her Desperation hits, and should those fail, things may get a bit dicey. If you want to get into the action without Emblem Sigurd, Endless Tempest is kind of the easiest for just +1 movement buff to have. Since Thunderbrand has no follow-up, if you want 50% DR Piercing, you can go with Speed and Defense Tempo 4. This is paired with Flash Sparrow or Flashing Blade cooldown to proc 2 cooldown specials on a second hit. Now, Vital Astra can be used just for the damage portion. If you try to proc Gust or a 4 cooldown special on the potent attack, then that's only going to deal 40% damage. Something like Time's Pulse or Emblem Marth can really help Catherine time her specials better. For other skills, Demon's Res Pledge or Oath 4 would be good just to get full field boss. That would give 24 true damage via Treachery. Catherine can also use Distant Bonus Doubler and the Sacred Seal. For other damage perks, Hexblade would be good for adaptive damage, and Assassin's Strike can add a 3rd true damage source. If you want defense, Dodge and Excel skills are fine. Velocity would be good for the no guard part, but they're still near tier 4 of that yet. Close Cut could also let Catherine move back after attacking, kind of like a hit and run with Dodge. Now, since she doesn't have Slaying, Catherine can use Gust with Lagu's Friend. The only issue with this setup is that it's kind of awkward for a Desperation unit. Ideally, you want Gust to trigger on the second hit for full damage, and to do that, you need Time's Pulse and Breath type cooldown. Another way to do this is Creation Pulse, assuming you get the -2 instant cooldown via penalties. This can be used with Speed and Defense Tempo as a Sacred Seal as well. Generally speaking, Catherine has a ton of true damage, but she probably wants a DR Piercing skill of some kind. There's also the issue of if she doesn't KO the enemy, she might be in trouble without defensive perks, and if you go full offense, her enemy phase is definitely iffy. One great benefit of this refine is that Treachery is given to other units. That's a really strong damage buff, although it is susceptible to low effects and the ploy status. Honestly, I am surprised Thunderbrand just isn't going to get brave attacks. That's kind of was its thing in 3 houses. If the potent hit was 100% damage, then I would think that'd be kind of a neat way to go about it, but it's not. So I know Desperation is supposed to emulate the 2-tap, but it's not the same, it's just kind of odd. Next up we have Duessel, one of the more memorable PvE units since he's basically one of the earlier versions of the Great Knight archetype we see a lot more nowadays. Very min-max for low speed at the time, Duessel is a somewhat bulky dude. He shared his tactics with Amelia earlier this year, so let's see what new tricks the Obsidian has picked up. Now, Obsidian Lance grants +3 defense and grants Kanto too. If the foe has 175% HP, or Duessel is next to 1 or fewer allies, he inflicts -6 attack and defense on the foe, he makes a free follow-up attack, and gets flat damage reduction equal to 20% defense. Ephraim's Cavalry also have had Kanto, so not too surprising to see that on Duessel here. Unlike Catherine, Duessel's activation condition has been improved from pure solo to being able to fight next to 1 ally. He also can use it against high health foes at any time. On top of the debuffs and follow-up attack, Duessel gets the popular 20% defense as flat DR. Any guesses on what the refine adds to that? Speaking of which, when refined, foes within 3 rows or 3 columns of Duessel are affected by -5 attack and defense and neutralize attack and defense field buffs. They will lose any extra special charging effects, and one of their follow-ups are now prevented. For Duessel, if above 25% HP, he inflicts another -6 attack and defense. He gets true damage equal to 20% defense and heals 7 HP after combat. To no surprise, Duessel gets the full 20% defense as true damage and flat DR treatment. He heals after combat and inflicts -17 attack and defense debuffs at base. What makes this refine pretty nice is that Duessel gets a Crux debuff. On top of a low attack and defense effect and a fall prevention, Duessel gets the rare no extra special charging, aka the defensive part of tempo. This Crux is similar to Ashnar's Gurgurant, just exchanging guard with the defensive tempo portion. If you combine the no extra special charging with guard, the enemy cannot charge specials unless they bring no guard or instant cooldown. Even though those are much more common now, Duessel can still mess with anyone trying to proc high cooldown specials via breath or blade type cooldown. If you want to counter instant cooldown though, you can pair Duessel with some scout teammates, or last refine may be able to help with that. In terms of playstyle, Duessel is still mostly the same bulky cav, but he's much easier to use with console now and the better activation conditions. No more pure solo skills. Duessel isn't going to be a crazy offensive powerhouse, but momentum and no quarter is the go-to if you want to get 5% DR and you want cooldown not named Heavy Blade. If you can get odd defense wave 4, obviously more defense for the refine, but it also grants no guard. Full on tempo would be very cool to have, since that means no quarter can be ready on a follow-up attack. It's also just more support for the team. You can pair offensive builds like this with Clash or Excel. For tanky setups, fortifications can be fun to set up the stone terrain and then get distant counter. Easier to retreat with Kanto now, and Duessel can use reopening even if he has a follow-up weapon. It's still going to be 30% defense as true damage and flat DR minimum, plus guard fits the refine. If you either have % DR, then guard 4 is the alternative. You can run Escutcheon or Pavis, but cooldown may be an issue. If you want more % damage reduction, you could use Gambit with Aether Miracle. This does give some AoE protection too. Sadly, Duessel can't get Bulwark without the status, but he can be used to initiate and set up debuffs like any of the tier 4 smokes. Panic or Attack Smoke 4 are fine. Since he can stay near allies, you can also use the Obstruct Sacred Seal to protect teammates. Breath of Life 4 is another option to frontline with. For some other skills, Flow Guard 4 will give Duessel Guard, Defensive Tempo, and Scowl, the entire selection of anti-cooldown perks. It's player phase only though. If you want to help with the team, Duessel can run Ruse with a Rally Assist. An interesting option is Shadow Shift. Duessel can shuffle his team around with his new innate Kanto, and the skill does add some HP after combat, which stacks with the Refine. For some other buffs, you can do Insight or Menace. If you're planning to just stack defense skills, you may want Mystic Boost. That is another healing source too. For tomb skills, Guard Echo is fine with the Refine, but you can also run the new Distant Counter Echo just for some good old fun. Overall, Duessel got a decent upgrade. If you like Ashnod's Refine, then this is a similar idea, although the Crux range extends across the map. For his own combat, Duessel still has the issues with cooldown and DR piercing. Very limited options here unless you bring support. Sadly, also not the best support build options. If you want some of these rarer skills, you may want to wait a little bit till December's Emblem Legendary or Mythic Banner, whatever it is. I believe Brave Alphonse and Emblem Sigurd are coming back, so Duessel can get some fun stuff there. Our last refine is our seasonal spot. This month it's for Halloween Female Grima. Normally a speedy flying dragon, this ult is very slow and bulky. Grima's going to get some incredible upgrades, so let's go through them. Moonless Breath is a distant counter weapon and is within 3 spaces of an ally. Grima inflicts -5 attack, defense, and res. She counters deep wounds' anti-healing by 50%, and when her offensive special triggers, Grima gets +10 true damage, full DR piercing, and now heals 50% max HP. This weapon got the same updates as Brave Claude. You got the better max % HP healing and able to counter deep wounds. Essentially, if the foe has Fatal Smoke, Grima will still heal 25% max HP, which is just under the original 30% this weapon used to have. This only happens on specials, but Grima now gets full DR piercing with those and +10 true damage on top. She also gets some debuffs for combat too. For the Refine, for allies within 2 spaces, Grima grants +4 attack, defense, res, and Scowl. This Scowl effect will use Grima's flat resistance to compare with the foe's flat resistance. It's not an in-combat check like usual. For her own combat, Grima now has Sling, and if above 25% HP, she inflicts debuffs equal to 5 plus 10% of her flat res. She has flat damage reduction equal to 20% of her in-combat res. And finally, Grima of course gets Scowl herself. This time, it's the usual in-combat res comparison. Essentially, Grima has taken Mythic Veil's Scowl support. Although the 2 female Robin ults from this past year already had Hush Spectrum, which inflicted Scowl, Grima doesn't affect follow-ups like Fallen Veil, but regular Scowl given to any unit type is very fun. You can stack this with your own Dragon Scowl skills, Hush Spectrum, or pair it with Duessel's Refine, with Guard to completely deny any kind of special charging. Many units are starting to use instant cooldown to charge specials. Scowl is the counter to those effects, and it's not really overkill to have multiple levels of Scowl. I'd say give it another year before we end up with some kind of no instant cooldown, no Scowl effects. This is what follow-up skill checking would have looked like if it wasn't for no follow-up totally destroying that system. Now before we move on, Halloween Grima does have a unique A skill based on her legendary versions. Dragon Scale gives IO Shield. If the foe initiates or is at full HP, inflict more attack and res debuffs, and +1 cooldown charge only when the foe attacks. This is not Blade or Breath type cooldown, it's more like Brave Dimitri's or Wayne's cooldown effects. A little outdated, but I think you could keep this A skill. IO Shield with Distant Counter is good, and then you can run Heavy Blade to get the full Breath type cooldown. The 100% enemy condition is a bit iffy, but that's for player phase only. One option to replace Dragon Scale is Stronghold or Fortress Defense Res or Fortifications. Because the Scale support does a flat res comparison, you kinda want high flat res. Grima has an okay base resistance with Dragonflower as an investment, but you probably want to push that further or high res special nukers might bypass Scale. Now, one reason to keep Dragon Scale is the cooldown. With the new slaying, Grima can counter back with 3 cooldown specials like Iceberg, Bonfire, or Dragon's Roar. This will be a DR piercing special with plus 10 true damage, and Grima will heal half her HP. If the foe doesn't go down, you may want a follow-up attack. Grima has Dragon's Ire 3, but you could also use Crux since she's a flyer. In terms of defense, you can run Dragon Wall or Counter Roar, percent DR to stack with Refine's flat DR. To help with scout checks, you can also use High Dragon Wall with its Phantom Res effect, and then you can use Even Res Wave D, which gives res buffs, and it has another scout effect for Grima. A pretty good, I think, but expensive build can revolve around Dragon's Scales, the B skill. This was from the Halloween banner this year, and it's a new Dragon's Ire upgrade. It can grant up to -11 debuffs based on flat DA defense or flat res checks, and it's a free follow-up skill with 50% DR piercing for every hit. It then gives -1 instant cooldown, similar to Lagu's friend. If the foe doesn't have guard, Grima could proc Dragon's Roar on her counter. However, if you run this setup with a Husk Spectrum Robin, then if the foe has Slaying, Husk Spectrum will give -1 instant cooldown too. This would help recreate Lagu's friend for Grima, and she can have the DR piercing special part covered. This would also charge Dragon's Roar before getting hit, thus activating the unpierceable 40% DR. You can add Emblem Ike for more. One issue with this setup might be that it clashes with Scowl stopping a special. If the foe doesn't die, their follow-up attack might be the special proc now, and now Emblem Ike and Dragon's Roar is both inactive. This is where Duessel's Refine plus a guard skill could help you out. Regardless, it seems like Grima is determined to keep Dragon's Scales in some way. For other skills, honestly Grima has a lot of fun options, albeit these are pretty rare. You can run a Scout A skill or go for tier 4 boost. You can stack flat DR with Reopening. Since Grima has to be near an ally for Scout, she can stack other support skills like Breath of Life 4, Crux, or Soaring Guidance. If you want to replace Legendary Myrrh with her job, then you can take Barricade for War Bubble. You could even use stuff like Rain Snap, Tempest, or Air Orders for mobility options. One way to help solve the cooldown issue could also be Momentum for the player phase. Thanks to this refined support and combat additions, Grima's got a ton of builds now. She would like cooldown, and a free follow-up would be nice since no specials means no 50% max HP healing. As for Scowl, to help allies out you do want to stack flat resistance. Couple of considerations here, but you got quite a lot of ways to go about this. If 2023 was male Robin's year with his legendary ult, Brave ult, and then making it into Engage via the DLC, then 2024 is definitely female Robin's year. Duo, Brave, and while technically Grima, I guess we'll count this ult too, getting a pretty sweet upgrade. That's gonna be it for the update 9.0 refines, starting off the book with an alright batch. I love Merlinus got something silly, and of course Grima made out extremely well. For me, I've been waiting a long time for a Duessel to get a refine. I've been saving up my copies, but I think it's time to finally merge them up. I am waiting on some proper modern fodder to feed them though. Let me know your thoughts, and thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.